Okay, we're going to start the meeting tonight. We want to welcome Dr. Joshua Plant, PhD. He is our Chief Science Officer, and he joined Isagenix just recently in May of 2019. He's an accomplished intellectual and a respected professional in the preventative health and nutritional science industry. As the Chief Science Officer, Dr. Joshua oversees the research and development, product design and development, product commercialization, and quality assurance of all Isagenix products. He is also the chairman of the Isagenix Scientific Advisory Board, which is a group of top medical and health professionals who lend their experience and expertise to ensure the integrity and the effectiveness of Isagenix products. Joshua attended the University of Utah and then was recruited into the biomedical doctoral program at Harvard Medical School, graduating first in his class. Prior to joining Isagenix, Dr. Plant served as the Chief Operating Officer, formulator, and chairman of the Product Advisory Board of another direct selling company. Joshua believes the most exciting aspect of direct selling industry is that it allows people to see their own potential, which helps them reach and achieve their goals. A married father of 4 children, Joshua enjoys playing racquetball, lifting weights, and reading political science fiction books. The legacy he would like to leave is to be a champion for education, health, and family.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Cindy, for having me on. This is a great opportunity that I have to speak to everyone here, and I'm excited. And the reason that I came to Isagenix is largely because of each and every one of you that are on this call. Understanding that there's no health revolutions that happen throughout the world unless ultimately the passionate individuals that make this world up are bought in, and that is each and every one of you, and you were all a lot of the driving force of why I came here. So I want to share a little bit about who I am. A lot of people, when they hear graduated first in your class from Harvard Medical School, assume I went to the finest preschools in the world. Nothing could be further from the truth. I actually am a first-generation college student. I grew up in a small town of about 1,000, 2,000 people living in a trailer. To where the primary income in that area, or the primary industry, was turkey farming. And that was all I knew. Well, anyways, kind of fast forwarding through my life, my parents gave me a wonderful upbringing. They taught me the value of hard work, integrity, and most importantly, taking risks, especially in yourself. And it was during this time, ultimately, I married, and I met a beautiful woman in the opposite order, met and then married her, and was able to understand the importance of relying on potentially the vision of others. At this time, we were married, we were expecting the birth of our first child. I was absolutely paranoid in this, not knowing how I was going to provide for my children. You see, at this time, I was actually stocking shelves at Target Graveyard because it paid me an extra 25 cents an hour or something like that. And my wife encouraged me to pursue my dream of being a scientist. And I'm sure at least for many of you on this call, it can be sometimes a little challenging to even admit your dreams in front of people because they seem so outlandish, so ridiculous, so 1 in a million. And that you should be more grounded in reality of what is around you. And I told my wife I wanted to be a scientist, and she encouraged me to do it. And it was at that moment that I realized that many times for us to progress in life, we have to rely on what others see in ourselves, mainly because we tend to focus on our faults, and those that truly love us see us for our true potential. Well, anyways, I did. I followed my wife's advice. We went and I enrolled in a local university and did fairly well, graduated with honors in biology and chemistry, worked in the lab, Also worked as a teaching assistant to kind of put food on the table. At this time now we had 2 children. Not the fastest learner. And it was a remarkable experience in my life. And it was, while I was working in the lab, I made a few key discoveries. And I was actually invited to speak out at the American Association for the Advancement of Scientists. And what that is that's a giant nerd convention every year where a whole bunch of people who wear bow ties, such as myself, get together. And I presented my research, and I thought I failed miserably. You have to understand, I'm a first-generation college student speaking in front of some of the most renowned scientists in the world, and with no pedigree, no formal real education at that point. It was a little bit discouraging. I left feeling I had failed miserably. Well, when I got back, Science Magazine, one of the prestigious magazines in the scientific community, highlighted my research as one of the best research out there. And this was kind of the beginning of what I would consider a little bit of a snowballing effect in my life, to where the National Institutes of Health got wind of my research. They invited me to be one of 10 individuals to come out and study at the National Institutes of Health of one of their prestigious research fellowships. There I spent a year and a half, 2 years working on breast cancer and the molecular mechanism behind breast cancer. Had several publications, and then one day I was ultimately called by Harvard and they told me that I was accepted, and that kind of came as a surprise, also with a little bit of reservation. And I was surprised because I really didn't apply, and a little bit of reservation as that was a moment where I thought ultimately this great production that I've been putting on as me as a scientist is going to be revealed as nothing more than luck. I'll be now sitting in classes with the smartest people in the world, and they'll realize that I'm nothing more than a person that's kind of slipped through the cracks to get where I am. But my wife encouraged me to pursue it again, and also my mother, and it was here that I was able to graduate first in my class in half the time it takes a typical student. And I remember, this is when I have 3 children now. His name was Jack Szostak. He won the Nobel Prize for his work on telomeres, ironically. He was sitting on my defense committee, and he told me, he said, "You have a wife, you have 3 children. How are you able to graduate so expeditiously, so quickly?" And I told him it was because of my wife and 3 children that I was able to do it. You see, I think a lot of times for people to succeed, or let me rephrase that, successful people have a way of taking what others look at as speed bumps in their life as launch pads. And really the only difference, I tell my kids this all the time, the only difference between a speed bump and a launch pad is how fast you're going. If you're going fast, speed bumps really send you out in the air and are a lot of fun. If you go slow, they're a nuisance. They slow you down even more. And most people ultimately will want to look at the challenges they have in life as speed bumps. And my wife and 3 children, they were more along the lines of a launch pad and encouraged me to move quickly. And it was because of that. Well, anyways, when it's all said and done, all of a sudden the offers start coming in from big pharmaceutical companies, want me to kind of head up labs and everything of the sort. And I graciously turned them down. This is when my wife thought I was a complete idiot. Why on earth are we doing that? We've battled poverty. We've ultimately checked the boxes everywhere we go. Here's the comfortable job. And this is when we can kind of reap those rewards. Well, the sad thing is I believe a lot of times what motivated me was the ability to make an impact on the world. And when we look at this, if I spent my life in a lab, a pharmaceutical company, and let's say I even developed a cure for some of the greatest diseases out there, only a small portion of the world would have access to that. And even a smaller portion of the world would even be able to afford it. And that is the real travesty, is the limitation of the changes that the world needs with respect to health and wellness isn't new knowledge, it's actually adoption of the lifestyles that we know work. And when we think about some of the greatest revolutions in the world with respect to health that we have seen, they have always come from the masses that are ultimately motivated to improve the lives of themselves and the loved ones around them. In fact, the greatest advancement in the health and wellness space over the last 500 years, I'd say, has really come from the simple act of washing hands. That has done more to save lives than the greatest cures could come of today. And the reason it's been so effective is it's a simple tool of soap, a little bit of education, followed most importantly by people educating the ones around them that they love the importance of washing hands. In fact, it's when my 5-year-old comes out of the bathroom and you hear the toilet flush and the door open immediately after that my wife perks up and tells her to get back in there to wash her hands. That is the power of true health revolutions, and that's what we need, and the world is needing it now more than ever. We are facing an unprecedented crisis with respect to obesity. It is growing at an alarming rate. In fact, 40% of us are obese, and well over 60% of us are overweight. Coupling that with an absolute meteoric rise with respect to other ailments that we are facing due to lifestyle choices. In fact, 85 to 90% of cancers are thought to be based upon lifestyle choices. And when we think about that, 85 to 90% of the challenges we're facing in the society today of the most deadly and gruesome diseases are based upon choices we make when we're alive and knowledgeable. And that is where the true change needs to happen, is we need to realize that we have more control over our health than we realize, and that a healthy change is needed, and that we as individuals, when we are united together in a common cause of changing the world around us for the better, based upon the implementation of a simple tool, education, and inspiring those that we love to embrace it, that is how real change happens. And that is why I came to Isagenix, is when I look at across the masses, the 500,000 passionate individuals who are screaming at the top of their lungs the power of cleansing, the power of intermittent fasting, the power of a true high-quality supplement in their daily lives to change and improve their health and wellness for the better. Wow, there's no stopping us. We are truly a force to be reckoned with. And one of my guilty hobbies is I love collecting and reading old textbooks. And I'm excited for the time in 20 or 30 years from now where I'm pulling back some of these old textbooks and realizing that just how wrong we had it, teaching drugs to every element that we had. And I'm hoping in 20 or 30 years from now, the new textbooks are preaching the power of lifestyle and the power of supplementation and helping people reach their health and wellness goals. And I even hope they talk about the Isagenix movement that inspired the world to take control of their health and what can come from that. And that's kind of why I'm at Isagenix, and I'm excited. It's been like 2-3 months now, and I couldn't imagine a better place to be at. I have never been more optimistic of the power that is at our fingertips. And over the next 6 months, the products that we'll be launching over the next 6 months, the inspiration that Isagenix is going to be giving to the billions of people across this globe is going to be unprecedented.
Wow, thank you. You told me that your favorite product is the IsaLean Shake. Can you tell us a little bit about why that is so? And
yeah, absolutely. When we look at some of the biggest challenges we face in the world today and the power of intermittent fasting and helping with that, but it's not just intermittent fasting, but it's also a nutritional fast of incorporating the powerful minerals and nutritional macros that are associated. And when we think about this, the functionality that has been ultimately derived from those IsaLean shakes is unprecedented, right? This is something that is so truly remarkable with respect to Isagenix. We have actually put our products through rigorous studies, unbiasedly, third party, that have shown unprecedented results with people ultimately reaching their weight loss goals. This is crazy. This is groundbreaking and earth-shattering and Most other companies don't do these types of studies, not because they don't have resources, but because they're afraid of the results. Isagenix not only invested an immense amount of resources to do these studies, but wasn't afraid of the results and made them publicly available. Now, when you think about some of the greatest challenges we face today, I talked about this, 60% of us struggling with overweight. And not only that, when we think about overweight, but what else that leads to. Everything from emotional challenges that it may have to the mother who's insecure about riding on a plane because she's afraid to ask for a seatbelt extender, or the dad who is unable to fit in the amusement park ride with his child. You see, a lot of these things are just the beginning of that true life-changing moment for them. It's not just losing 20 or 30 or 40 or 100 pounds, as we've seen so many people do. It's really what that life-opening experience does for them. And it is really giving them a new sense of life and meaning and things that they've never experienced before. The other day I was talking with an individual. She had lost about 80 pounds and she was over 60 years old, and she's tried so many different things through her whole life. And she's finally lost the weight. And it's like she's 15 years old again. And she's 60 and she's running around so excited. And it's like for the first time in her life, it's like one of those children who have been deaf their whole life and then all of a sudden start to hear again, they get the hearing aids. And the excitement, the smile, and the whole breadth of reality that is now facing them that they didn't have before, and joy that follows them, that is what drives me. And the power that it comes, and when it's not just a shake, when we think about IsaLean and what it really brings is so much hope and optimism and a fresh outlook on life. There are so many people that are begging for that. There are so many people that are ultimately at home every night discouraged and embarrassed and unable to ultimately accomplish that what they're wanting to in the short 100 years we have on this earth, because the weight that they're carrying, and not only the weight they're carrying, but that which it represents, and the power of the IsaLean system to help them overcome that is wonderful. It's remarkable. And unprecedented in the space of supplementation.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. That's great. Speak a little bit about, we're more advanced medically, Dr. Plant, and yet we have higher disease, higher, heart attack risk, higher breast cancer, more autism, depression. Everything is, indicating that we have less medical advancement, and yet we have more medical advancement. And why all this disease, and how can we be a part of the solution for that?
Yeah, there was a great report that came out by a group of physicians and scientists that talked about the problem with toxins in our environments. There's a problem, I believe, holistically, that where we look at medicine. As I said before, right now we see pain and we try to provide a solution to that pain rather than ultimately trying to provide a solution to the source of the challenges. And there needs to be a different approach. When we think about it as, I always tell everyone, it's interesting when you watch television with people that are maybe a couple generations different than you. I was sitting down with my grandfather who just celebrated his 87th birthday, and a commercial came up for a drug for a disease that was rather unusual. And he told me, he's like, man, this is crazy. When I was a kid, it was only smallpox and polio. None of these other things. And we have to realize what has largely happened is there's an economy. The second most profitable industry in the world, second only to banking, is the pharmaceutical industry. Mm-hmm. And what is driving a lot of this is I'm not saying the pharmaceutical industry is bad. They've done a lot of great, but we have to understand that a lot of times they have a conflict of interest to what is their shareholders and also to what is their patients. And when we look at a lot of the challenges we're facing, when we know that the average American today, for example, is consuming 400 calories more a day than he did just 30 years ago, that we're not willing to address that simple fact that 400 calories is attributing to probably 30 or 40 pounds of weight gain that they are not wanting. There's this simple problem that we're not addressing, and we know the solution to it. But instead, we understand that that weight gain is going to attribute it to a variety of other diseases. And ultimately, that individual, which was once a powerful person, is now ultimately his lifestyle is diminished at the expense of him being nothing more than a pocketbook to a variety of different industries that are living off of him being unhealthy. And that is where we need to look and address the situation holistically and completely, and look at the individuals of what we can do to solve many of the challenges we face today. And I don't think there's never going to be a solution if we ultimately expect a company or a government institution or a bureaucratic entity or whatever it might be to kind of solve the problem for us. No, it has to come from the ground up. It has to come from passionate individuals such as yourself, as I said before, that are united in the cause of change and realizing through natural supplementation, lifestyle changes, embracing exercise, that the greatest challenges we are facing today in our health and wellness can be solved. In fact, if people just ate right and exercised, our lifespan would increase by 14 years.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Wow.
And it's so simple if we ultimately embrace the simple tools that are around us at our disposal.
So depression is a big thing right now, and I know that the Isagenix Shake has tryptophan in it, and not that we treat, diagnose, or cure, but what is your research showing about such debilitating types of diseases that are emotional diseases, mental diseases?
Yeah. There was a wonderful clinical study that was done that showed the power of exercise. And this is something that's interesting. In a double-blind, placebo-controlled study, they showed that exercise was in many ways just as effective or more effective than many prescription drugs that are given with respect to helping individuals' perspective of happiness. And when we think about this, a lot of times we try to solve problems through drugs, which is understandable. But what's happening is there's not an education. You have pharmaceutical reps that are ultimately telling doctors the power of the drug, but there's never an exercise rep. There's never a nutrition rep. There's never somebody out there advocating the power of a cucumber. And what's happening is there's one lack of filtration of education that is feeding the education or the medical institution. And that needs to change. And that's why I believe you are all such powerful advocates for this change. And that is what is needed. Is we need to be out there talking about the power of exercise, the power of eating right, the power of a healthy lifestyle, and helping us overcome many of the challenges we face today, that we do have control of our health. And the natural world will never have advocates. And unfortunately, it will never have advocates because there was a Supreme Court ruling that prevented natural product from being patented. This, on the surface, may seem like a great thing, but what happened is that prevents a lot of companies from ultimately investing in long-term clinical studies of the effectiveness of their particular products, preventing you from making a lot of claims. And nobody's ultimately going to spend $700 million making a product if they don't have exclusivity on that product. And so it prevented a lot of competition from the pharmaceutical world, and it prevented ultimately advocates of the natural world and the benefits that it gave. And I am a strong believer that the greatest solutions to our health and wellness, or the problems we face with our health and wellness, will always be discovered in the ground beneath us than they will be the bench in front of us. And we need to look at the natural world around us for a lot of the problems we face.
Yeah, thank you. And of course, we all back that opinion. Do you know what that study, do you know when that, what did you say, that law happened where you can't have patents? That's pretty...
Yeah, I'll pull that up here. I'm not a lawyer, but I'll do my best.
You can just email it. We'll send it out. But that's really great information. Okay, I have another question. There are some questions coming in through the chat. And if you anyone has questions, please feel free to ask those questions in the chat. We have a question for you, Dr. Plant. What about pregnant women in the shake? You know, we hear in Isagenix children that are... we call them Isa babies, which means that the mother is actually taking the shake throughout her whole pregnancy. Can you speak a little bit about that? It was a question from from John Graham.
Yeah. So this is something that's very important. We're realizing more and more the power of the mother in ultimately the epigenetics of the child. Um, this is great. I don't know if I can share my screen. Hold on. I'll pull up a cool little picture.
Let's see. I think I can let you share screen. So if you want to share it with me, I think I can share it with them. Let's see how I do that.
All right. What I'll do is I'll quickly, I don't know if I can do this or not. I will try chatting this picture to you. Oh, let me chat it. All right. Yeah, I won't be able to do it, but anyways, there's a picture of two mice I have here on my desktop. These two mice were part of an epigenetic study, and epigenetics means the genes are the same, but they act differently. And the reason they act differently is because of lifestyle choices. So what they did is they had two mice that were genetically identical. The DNA was identical. And they took these mice, and that was, in essence, they were an embryo. They were identical twin embryo mice. And they put one in one female mouse and had it, raised in utero, and then they took the other one and put it in a different mouse. And they gave one mouse a little bit more BPA. BPA is the common thing that a lot of our plastic is made of. And that mouse was significantly overweight compared to the other mouse. These mice had the exact same diet. It was just that the one mother of that mouse ultimately had a little bit more BPA in her diet. That's crazy to think. Just a little BPA that's found everywhere around us ultimately destined this mouse for a life of obesity and diabetes and a variety of other things. Now, when we look at the mouse that ultimately wasn't exposed to it, it was normal. It was healthy weight. It didn't have any of those challenges. And when we think about this, the lifestyle choices that a mother is making in utero is setting the tone for the child, the rest of the child's life. It's just not as healthy during those 9 months. It's also healthy during the rest of its life. And that's part of the power of what Isagenix is providing, is that powerful supplementation during some of the most fragile and influential moments of a child's life is during those 9 months.
Thank you. Yeah, it is a critical time, and we are finding that, talk a little bit about the toxins that the children are being exposed to, or actually in vitro, those toxins, and how does the shake even work, inside of that realm?
Yeah, well, so a lot of the minerals and the macronutrients, and this is something that's important when we think about this, the importance of having something that has some carbohydrates to it. It's easy to find shakes out on the market that have no carbs and are promoting it, but the truth of the fact is we need it. Our brain can only feed off of carbohydrates, most specifically glucose. And when we are in an absence, when we are in a starvation state of glucose, in our brain will be the first thing that suffers. And when it suffers, ultimately our ability, our willpower, our decision-making, our logic, our rationale are all significantly depleted. Well, what happens is when we try to embrace different types of things without proper balanced macros, such as the IsaLean Shake does have, not only are we the ones that are struggling, but our children that are in utero as well will be struggling. And those are the things that we need to realize, is when we are making these things, the power of that IsaLean Shake has been carefully crafted to include all of those things that are needed. Now, we're also getting ready to launch some stuff that is important to children a little bit older here very, very soon. So stay tuned.
Awesome. We're excited. So then you're addressing somewhat then the issue of the sugar. So people are always asking, the ketose, a lot of ketose lovers out there. Mm-hmm. This fad diet, would we say that it's a fad if it pulls out all of those carbs and all that sugar? I mean, it looks a lot to me. I'm about almost 60, and I remember the Dr. Atkins diet. You know, those were the diets our parents went on, and ketos look a lot like that diet. Is it a fad diet? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, so ketosis is the molecular mechanism by which you call fat burning. That's what ketosis means. Obviously, the shakes put you in a ketosis state. The clinical studies that Isagenix has done has shown significant weight loss, more than has been ever seen before. So does it put you in ketosis? Absolutely. You're burning fat. That's undisputed. The evidence suggests that. Now, people will try to send you into a ketosis state by completely removing carbohydrates. Let me tell you a little bit about what a keto diet was originally created for. A keto diet was originally created to help people with epileptic seizures. And the reason that it was designed to help people with epileptic seizures is because you're starving the brain of carbohydrates. You're ultimately having that brain not function at such a high level. Now, people obviously are going to lose weight on that as well because you're sending the body into ketosis. You can send the body into ketosis, and preferably so with the presence of some carbohydrates. You don't want to starve the brain at the sake of ultimately burning fat. You want to burn fat while also fueling the brain. And that is the importance of what IsaLean and the IsaPro and a variety of the other products have ultimately done. That doesn't mean we're not going to innovate things in the future as we learn more and more and the science progresses, but it also speaks volumes to the power of our products and the careful formulation that has come to where we're not a one-dimensional pony, or a one-trick pony that is delivering a product by ultimately just removing other macros. We understand that the body needs all of those macros in unison for proper functionality. You will lose weight. You will go into ketosis, no question about it. The best before and afters live with Isagenix. The clinical studies live with Isagenix. It works. You don't need to ultimately become brain dead to get the results, though.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, we don't need to have that loss of energy and what our brains actually need to function properly. And a lot of people are finding that the ketosis diets in the extremity are causing depression. In fact, Dr. John Gray wrote a lot about that in his book, Diet and Exercise. It's very powerful. Well, let's move on a little bit now to the telomere subject. When we spoke at corporate, you said that you're fascinated with the telomere research, and not to get too much information before celebration out of you, but can you tell us how deep can you go about the research? Is there some new stuff coming out? What are some studies? Kind of give us a little bit of information then. What about a generation 5? I guess we're all begging to know.
Yeah, and that may very well be coming. I won't say to when. But this is I speak to John Anderson on a very frequently, very intrigued by the amount of research that has gone into that. And when we think about telomeres is like it is the protective end of our chromosomes. And each time a cell divides, that protective layer comes a little bit shorter. And that is it is looked at as one of the 9 key components of cellular aging. It's been well adopted. Jack Shostak, who I researched under, who won the Nobel Prize, looked at that and identified that. And there's a variety of components that are involved in making sure that those telomeres are not only can you slow them down, but in many ways, what can we do to give them the support they need to make sure that they're not degrading at a much faster rate. And this takes into account everything from the antioxidants that are embraced to enzymatic activity in the cells that are utilized in that telomeric support. And the power that is designed behind that product is wonderful. It's exciting. I'm also really, really excited to be working with John Anderson on potentially some other things that may be coming through.
So we're hearing, thank you with that. Give us a little bit more though, I mean, if you can. What research, you said you actually studied with a doctor that was received Nobel Prize for his telomere research. Can you go in depth a little bit about what he actually discovered, and did you participate in some of those studies?
Yeah, so I wasn't involved in that. I came to he was on my committee, and the work was done before I started school there. But what what he did is he was able to show ultimately how those telomeres are correlated with aging, and that ultimately when a cell, when those telomeres become so short, it goes into kind of a senescence, or it dies, so to speak, and triggers what's called an apoptotic event, cascading of those cells to die. And that's what we're seeing more and more as we age with adults. Our stem cells, ultimately those telomeres become so short that those stem cells become dysfunctional, and that's why it's harder for wounds to heal. That's why we have difficulty ultimately recovering from different types of ailments, or why the skin may age disproportionately at that time, is because when we look at the 30 to 50 trillion cells in the body, in the skin that is made up of about 2 trillion of those cells being reproduced on a monthly basis, the amount of energy that is being composed into that in the telomeres from those original skin stem cells that is needed to make sure that the skin looks youthful and vibrant, as those stem cells become less and less effective due to the shortening of the telomeres, we need to make sure that we're providing optimal telomeric support. And that is the power of that Isagenix product.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So we're hearing a little bit, of the legalized marijuana for medical reasons. And is Isagenix researching anything about that? You indicated there might be something coming down the line with that.
Sorry, what was that? You cut out there for a sec.
Oh yeah, are they doing any research about the benefits of legalized marijuana? The different medical benefits. We're having some states are legalizing it, others are researching it.
Yeah, I believe that there's great power in CBD, if this is what we're looking at, and working very much with this legally and doing it the proper way. What we're finding more and more in the CBD space, and the FDA actually recently published this, as they took a random 10 samples and analyzed them, that many of the things that contain CBD or were advertised to contain CBD didn't contain any CBD. Some of the things that contain or promoted to contain CBD actually contained a synthetic CBD, which is very, very damaging to the body and toxic. Can cause psychoactive events. Some of the CBD contained THC, which would cause you to fail drug tests, and it was more or less just marijuana. And so the importance of CBD is to do it right and to do it the correct way. And this is, as we kind of look, and in my background, what I've done of looking to kind of bring some of those efforts to Isagenix.
Good, thank you. So Isagenesis, we're on you know a little bit about the Dave MacArthur movement and the Forever Pack movement. We've got hundreds of thousands of people that we're just starting with Isagenesis and the shake, and we spoke quite a bit about the shake. Can you spend some time on Isagenesis and how that drew you into Isagenix?
Yeah, when we think about this, you can always tell where a company is going, not by where it is, but by what the people that are associated with it. And we see that some of the greatest minds in the health and wellness space have gravitated towards Isagenix. And we see that this research is unparalleled, and the investment that the Cougars are ultimately putting into making sure that our products are yielding at the highest results is unprecedented in the industry. And so this is what is so promising when people talk to me about Isagenix, where I always lead that I have never been more optimistic of where the direction of a company is going. Because when you have an executive team like Isagenix and you have ownership like the Cougars that are united in an objective to ultimately make sure that our associates can succeed in this company, no matter through thick or thin, you know what the end result is going to be. Because they are so determined and they are putting all their resources into making sure that this company succeeds. It is powerful in giving us what we need to do.
Thank you. We go to trade shows, and our team does a lot of trade shows, and you'll see companies that claim that they have telomere support. And we know they don't, right? We know they can't possibly have what we have. They don't have the science. We know that Bill Andrews, in his corner that he has on the research, he actually has the equipment, the only equipment. How do we, we're in the sales, we're the sales side. How do we work with those types of claims. You know, when we're selling a product and they say, we have telomere support. And I think for me, it looks like they're saying, you know, it's an antioxidant support, and they're just using the buzzword telomere. But, you know, give us some advice on how we should work with that, you know.
Yeah, and that's difficult. This is the power, I guess, of a scientist. I'm not a sales associate. I would recommend kind of work with the sales team on this. But when we look at this, I think obviously leveraging the individuals that are involved, Bill Andrews and so forth, that have been so critical in the development and discovery of this. Myself, who worked with Jack Shostak, that we have the individuals that have ultimately been a part of this, uniting with these products behind us, speak volumes. And while others will ultimately leech onto buzzwords, we are ultimately driving with efficacy. And the amount of research that we have done, the publications, the support that we've done this to show greater bioavailability, to you name it, is very powerful in making sure that people are getting what they are. And something that is difficult to measure is aging. You don't ultimately want to just take what somebody's saying, the word for it. You want to ultimately rely on the reputations of individuals that are vesting it towards that product and delivering that.
Yeah. So in the industry, you're in the wellness industry, and I'm sure you're interacting a lot with other scientists. We're amazing. I mean, we're way ahead of the game on the telomeres and the isagenesis. What's our competition? You know, as you talk to other scientists, what are they saying? What do they say they're finding? And who are they using to back up their research?
Yeah, I haven't spoken to too many individuals about this, to be honest, in the scientific community. It's funny because really what bulk of my work has been going is kind of looking forward, thinking on the new developments and the new products. And scientists tend to kind of stay out of the commercialization of this and the sales side of it. But when we think about this, right, we need to rely on the power of Isagenix and the leverage of what our resources that we put into these products. Other companies have simply kind of bought time by buying products until ultimately I always say the sheep clothing is removed off of the wolf. That's not the case with Isagenix. We've been around for over 14 years in delivering the products. We have stood the test of time. Results have spoken in clinical studies. Isagenix has always had an uncompromising release of their products, and always an uncompromising amount of quality in their testing, the rigors of testing. And these are the powers that we need to recognize with what Isagenix brings. And it is a remarkable company to be a part of. And it's been an absolute pleasure to be talking to you tonight on this. I feel bad. I've got a call that I've got to jump onto literally in a minute. So I got at 6:15. So I got to quickly wrap this up. But I really want to leave everyone with this, that the power of Isagenix lies with you guys. We are providing you the best products in the world, no question about it. That's why I came here. That's why I'm willing to leverage my reputation behind it and my knowledge in doing so. But it is really with you guys that differentiates us. It is your vision, it is your passion, it is your hope of changing your life. It is a hope of changing the world, that healthy change that is so needed, and you guys driving it. Is each and every one of you sitting in your living rooms, the coffee shops, talking to your friends, your families, and encouraging them to metaphorically wash their hands. That's what we're doing. And it is ultimately starting a movement that is brush fire, and we are going to change the world. We're going to be looking younger. We're going to be feeling fitter. We're going to be looking better. And it is largely because of what you guys are doing. And more importantly, it is the millions and billions of people's lives that are indirectly being impacted positively through your works each and every day. So thank you. Thank you so much.
So, Dr. Plant, yes, thank you so much. We had one more question, if we can ask real quick. The difference between folate and folic acid. Can you just briefly, that was a question that was asked earlier today, give us why we're using folic acid versus...
Yeah, so there's a couple of different reasons. There's political reasons with respect to folic acid, allowing it to be classified as a fortified food, allowed to get into different countries. The body is able, for the most part, be able to use them interchangeably. That's not the case for everyone, but stay tuned. We should be coming out with some stuff very soon that will also include a folate methylish version of it as well. So you will see power in that.
Good. Well, we want to thank
Yep.
Dr. Plant tonight for his time, and we know he has to skirt off. Tonight he's talked a little bit about his passion and his interest in the wellness. He chose not to do the pharmaceutical industry because he liked the power of word-of-mouth marketing. He's talked a little bit about washing your hands and how important that is, as well as the power of our mouth-to-mouth marketing. We talked a little bit about pregnant women and able to benefit from the nutrients in the shake. And he talked even a little bit about exercise and how important it is for us to talk about the foods that we eat as well as exercise. And lastly, we spoke about ketosis, how it's just fat burning, and the importance of keeping all the macros in our body, and how the Isagenix Shake does that. We also talked about Isagenesis and how the efficacy of the product and the results that we have are what makes us different than other products. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Plant. We appreciate your time today.